gosh, look at this awesome picture I got.
Oh my gosh, send it to me. Cool. I need that.
Yes.
That's so pretty.
I love that. Look,
yes.
selfie.
Selfie.
Look at this.
Yes, that's an awesome picture.
What is
this? What?
I don't ever want to see that again.
Me neither.
How are we supposed to stay safe online with this?
Oh my gosh, just listen.
What?
Just listen.
What's that, some kind of band or something?
No, it's about these 4 awesome girls that teach you about how to stay safe online.
That's just what we need.
We should totally get it.
Found it.
That was really quick.
Hi everyone.
We're Girl Scouts.
From Troop 87002. I'm Allie. I'm Sophia.
I'm Pravia,
And I'm Olivia.
and we're going to teach you about
Internet safety and responsible use of social media.
Okay, I know it sounds boring, but I promise it'll get better.
No, it won't.
Shh, little sisters.
The internet can be fascinating and entertaining, but it also has its drawbacks. This is why we have brought in some experts on social media and cyberbullying to interview. First up, we have Officer Stavro from the Wilmington Police Department.
We will also be interviewing Miss Peachy from the North School Library.
And Marion Ryan, the Middlesex County District Attorney.
Take it away, Liv.
We are joined today by Officer Matthew Stavro from the Wilmington, Massachusetts Police Department. Thank you for joining us, Officer Stavro.
I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about your job within the Wilmington Police Department?
Sure. I'm currently assigned as the traffic officer for the town of Wilmington. So my main job is traffic enforcement, investigating crashes, things like that. I also work as a patrol officer, so I do respond to emergency calls and investigate crimes. But another big job for me is I'm the department social media officer. So in addition to maintaining the department's website, I monitor and administer our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our Twitter page, and YouTube.
Why is it important for kids to always let a responsible adult know when they are going online?
There's a lot of traps online. There's a lot of people out there that are looking to take advantage of both young people and old people. So it's always good for your parents to know what you're doing online, because you don't want to get into a situation where there may be a person that's looking to take advantage of you, and your parents know what you're doing, and they're aware of your activities.
For safety reasons, is there certain information that kids should not share online?
Absolutely. You shouldn't, just like you were talking to a stranger, you don't want to give your name or your address or your date of birth, any kind of personal identifying information like that. You know, there's plenty of online games that you can play out there, and that's great and fun, but you do want to make sure that you're not giving out information that someone could identify you and eventually show up at your house or something like that.
Once information, pictures, or videos are shared online, is it possible to remove them completely?
That's tough. Usually no. Sometimes you might be able to catch it, but what we usually tell people is if you put it online, it's there forever. And a lot of people have had pictures and videos and things they've done and posted online come back to haunt them years later, whether it's trying to get a job or apply to college.
What is the best way to know if a website is safe for kids or teenagers?
Well, we recommend using parental controls at home. So that's really the best way to make sure a site is safe, but also to check with your parents before you go online, letting them know what website you're going to be on so that they know where you're going to be and what sites you're going to be on. And if there's a question about a site, you can always have them check it first.
How can I avoid clicking on something that might make me feel worried or scared?
Parental controls are the best option. I know here in town we have options for Verizon and Comcast for our internet providers, and both of them offer parental controls with the router that a lot of parents don't even realize that they're there, that they can control which website the kids are going to, and even control what times they're online. I know when my children were younger, we used to actually have it turned off. The Wi-Fi would turn off at night so that they couldn't get on their phones and they weren't surfing the web after bedtime.
In your line of work, have you ever encountered a situation where a child or teenager was in a dangerous situation because of information shared on the internet?
Yeah, Wilmington, we have had a couple of incidents over the course of my career where people have given out information and someone has tried to make contact with them. Luckily, they contacted us and we were able to intercept that person before they came to the house. Like I said, that's not something you ever want to do because there are people out there that, they may appear to be your friend and you may think that they're your friend, but they're really, they may tell you that they're a 14-year-old boy or girl and it could be a 35-year-old man. So that's why we don't want to give out that information.
If you become friends with someone online who you have never met in person, is it okay to make plans to meet up with them? If so, are there any precautions that need to be taken?
I wouldn't recommend it because, like I said, you don't know who you're talking to. Maybe in the slim chance if your parents are aware and you're having video conversations and you're having an arranged meeting that your parents are involved in, that might be the only situation, but we would never recommend that you arrange a meeting with someone that you met online unless your parents are going to be there as well.
How often do the police get involved in cases of cyberbullying between kids or teenagers?
It happens more than we'd like. Our school resource officers, Officer Stebbins at the middle school and Officer Cadigan at the high school, I know they deal with it a lot. Issues with people taking pictures and forwarding them to friends and things like that, or people making threats or calling people names. So I know they deal with it quite often, and it does get to be a problem sometimes in the schools.
In cases of cyberbullying, what are the consequences for those causing the problem?
In an easy case, they might just get in trouble in school, get in trouble with their parents. But in serious cases, someone could face criminal penalties and they might get summoned into court and have to get involved in the justice system and have to stand before a judge and explain their actions.
My parents follow the Wilmington Police Department on social media via Facebook and Instagram and enjoy the tips and updates your department provides. Can you please explain how you use social media to support the community?
Sure. One of the nice things about social media is that we're able to get out information quickly and easily to the community. So we do try to keep relevant information. Something as simple as a road being closed because of a crash or a weather issue, or more recently we had a missing person that we were able to get information out online. It was shared throughout the community and we were able to locate her in a couple of days. So we do try to keep that kind of information, and it also gives the community a chance to learn about what we do. So we're not just as people driving around in a police car, that they get a little more idea of what we're doing on an everyday basis. And we try to do some fun things on there as well to show people that we're everyday people just like you.
Yeah. Do you have any additional advice for kids and teenagers in our town regarding safe and responsible use of the internet and social media?
I would just say, whatever you're going to put on social media, imagine that it's going to be there forever. So always think twice before if you're going to put something out there that maybe you shouldn't do.
Thank you very much for your expert opinion.
You're very welcome.
Did you know that 84% of the 5th grade students at our school have regular access to social media through a tablet or phone? According to the survey we created with help from our school librarian, nearly 30% of students in our grade spend more than 2 hours on social media activities each day. Let's find out what they're up to. Do you have any online games or sites that you like, and why?
Yes, we like Roblox because you get to play with your friends, and one specific game on there is Bloxburg, and I really like it because you can build your own house.
It's good. You're allowed to keep things private between just you and friends.
Next up, we have Tony talking about a favorite video game in 5th grade.
I like Fortnite because you can play with family and friends at home or at school, and it comes out with new seasons every day, new things every day, and changes the map and everything.
What is your favorite app or social media site?
Our favorite app is Snapchat because you can send pictures to people with filters that make you look funny, and it's really fun.
Also, you can text people and send emojis. Also, look at people's stories that they post stuff on.
YouTube is a very popular site, and we have a few guests here to talk about it.
I like YouTube because I can watch funny videos on it, like NFL bad lip reading and Star Wars bad lip reading, and I can learn how to crochet and all that, and learn how to do different fun crafts.
You can also watch videos that you're into, like if you're into, like, let's say Ariana Grande, you can watch, and also, like, you can, like, make your own videos on YouTube.
What app do you like and why?
I like TikTok because I like lip singing to the songs.
And I like using TikTok because you can interact with your friends and see what they're doing.
I like TikTok because you can make cool 15 seconds videos.
I like TikTok because there's fun dances and challenges.
5th graders sure spend a lot of time on their devices.
Next up, Sophia will chat with our digital citizenship expert. Our next guest is Miss Heather Peachy from the North Intermediate School. Thank you for helping us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so happy to be here.
In your role as the intermediate school librarian, why do you teach students about internet safety and social media use?
Well, as you know, because you're one of my students, I teach internet safety and social media use because the internet is wonderful. It is full of resources, but it's full of other stuff too. So we have to be very careful and be very responsible when we use the internet. And so I like to teach lots of ways to be safe online and making good choices online. And we use lots of different techniques at school. We do a lot of, we make videos, we discuss, we write stories, we do lots of different things because it's really important to have lots of good knowledge, background knowledge about being safe online. Don't you think?
Yes, definitely.
Good.
Are there apps, games, and websites that are not appropriate for kids?
Well, I am so glad you asked because we've actually talked about this in class too. There are a lot of apps and games out there that I see kids using every day. And if you actually go online to the apps themselves, it'll give you an age recommendation for these apps. And a lot of the ones that kids are using nowadays are actually designed for kids 12 and older. I think I discussed this with some other students, and I have a little list here. We discovered that apps like, let's see, Instagram, Snapchat are all designed for kids 12 and older. And none of my 5th graders are 12 years old. No. Twitter and YouTube are for 17 and above. Facebook is for 12 years old and up. TikTok, which is a big one that you guys all use, is also for kids 12 and older.
Well, most of us.
Well, most of you, not all of you. So these apps I recommend with caution because they really are designed for kids a little bit older than you guys, and though I know you're all using them anyway. So it's important just to be aware that they may be a little bit older. They may be designed for kids a little bit older than what they're using them for. Does that make sense?
And are there some websites that with the proper restrictions would be safe?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I recommend that you go on these websites with your parents and ask your parents' permission and look through them together and make sure that they're appropriate. I can recommend websites, but it really comes down to you working with your parents and knowing what's going to work for you. Does that help? I hope. Yeah, it's definitely a parent-kid thing.
Do you have any recommendations for search websites that kids can use to do research without stumbling across information or pictures or videos that might be inappropriate?
Well, I do, and again, I'm so glad you asked. Everyone tends to use Google, as I'm sure you have too, right? Well, Google makes a website called Safe Search Kids, And Safe Search Kids is designed with a filter. So it tries to filter out all the inappropriate images and inappropriate websites so kids can go on there and feel they're searching safely. And there's a couple other ones out there. There's KidRex is another safe search website for kids. I wrote a couple of them down. There's one called, this is one of my favorites, DuckDuckGo. That's a great website to search online. There's one called Kiddle, and those are my big favorite ones. Yeah, they're all a little bit safer and easier for kids to use than just Googling things. Yeah.
Lots more choices.
Lots of choices out there, absolutely.
Speaking of lots of games and apps require username and password. What tips do you recommend when choosing them? Should I use my birthday, my dog's name?
Oh my goodness, never use your birthday. When you're choosing a password, you should never choose a password that contains your first name or your last name or your birthday or even your dog's name. You need to choose passwords that other people can't easily guess. One technique that I like to use when creating a good password is to think of a phrase that you know or a song lyric. For me, I would use the phrase, never judge a book by its cover. And I would take the first letter of each word and make that into a password. So N for never, J for judge, B for book, A for A, and C for cover. And then I would add a number and a symbol at the end, and I would make sure that you have an uppercase and some lowercase letters in there. And that way, when you have to type the password in, if you say the phrase in your head, it makes it easier to remember the password. That's a great technique that I like.
Sounds very effective.
I hope so.
Unlike some other ones.
Unlike some other ones, don't use your name. If you're an adult, I say don't use your child's name. No, maybe not even a nickname. Yeah.
Who should have access to my usernames and passwords other than me?
Oh, that's very simple. Your parents. And that's it. Your parents should know your passwords, you should know your passwords, and no one else. There's really no need for your best friend to know your password. There's no need for your older brothers and sisters to know your passwords. It's really just something that should be between you and your parents. Very simple. Yeah.
What could happen if someone else guessed or knew information?
Well, if someone guesses your passwords, they could get into your accounts. I've heard stories about students knowing the password of a friend's email and sending an email from their friend's account that was really inappropriate, and their friend got in trouble, even though someone else sent the email. Does that make sense? Yeah. You don't want people being able to get into your gaming accounts, do you? Absolutely not. They could get in there, they could start talking, pretending that they are you. I'm not a big gamer, but I'm sure there's other damage they could do to your gaming account type thing. You have to be very, very careful about who knows your information and where you're sharing it, so this doesn't happen, for sure. Yeah.
Do you think that elementary and middle school students today are always behaving safely and respectfully online?
That's a tricky question. I would hope so, but people make mistakes, for sure. And it's easy to accidentally share a password. It's easy to accidentally get onto the wrong website, to look up something inappropriate. So I think for the most part, kids are being safe online, but I think it's also important for them to learn how to be safe online so that these mistakes become fewer and fewer as they get older and older, so they don't run into some more serious consequences. So I hope that answers your question. For the most part, kids are being safe online, but they still should be learning about internet safety.
Do you think people behave differently online than they do in person?
Oh, I definitely think so. I definitely think when people are online and they're a little bit anonymous, they definitely get braver than they would be if it was face to face. It's easy to be meaner to someone when they're not looking at you. It's easier to make bad choices when you're not worried about the person sitting beside you. So unfortunately, people do make some pretty poor choices when they're online. Yeah.
If someone you interact with online says something that upsets you, what should you do?
Good question. Excellent question. It kind of falls back to the password question. The first thing you should do is go to your parents. If it happens at school, go to a teacher. go to the librarian, go to the principal. But the first thing you should do is go to an adult. An adult can guide you as to the next step. Should you talk to that person or should the adult take over? So talk to an adult first.
Do you have any other tips or suggestions for students regarding social media and internet safety?
Yes. Get offline. Go outside and play. I think children need to be outside playing more. They need to get off the games. They need to get off the apps. They need to get some more exercise and fresh air. I think they're very addicting, don't you? We love playing our games, but it's important to put them down and walk away. That's my number one thing, with my own children at home as well, and myself. I like playing games, but it's important to get off the games and go outside and play.
Thank you for joining us
Oh my
today.
gosh, you're so welcome. What a pleasure.
Did you know that cyberbullying is a serious problem? Even in elementary school, 21% of the 5th graders we surveyed have experienced cyberbullying. Once students reach middle school, they report spending even more time on social media. 14.9% of students spend 5 or more hours each day on their computer or device doing things not related to school. In our middle school, 20.6% of the students claim to have been electronically bullied through email, chat rooms, instant messaging, websites, or texting. To get another point of view about social media responsibility and learn a bit more about cyberbullying, let's go on a field trip.
Our final guest today is Middlesex County District Attorney Marion Ryan. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to do this.
We hear the term cyberbullying often. Can you describe to us exactly what qualifies as cyberbullying?
So bullying itself is when someone repeatedly is doing one of a number of things. Either they're physically hurting somebody, like if every time you walk by somebody they stick their foot out and trip you, that would be bullying. They might be emotionally hurting you. Every time you go by, people call you a terrible name or something like that. They threaten you, or they damage your property. So if somebody scribbles on your book every single day just because they don't like you, that's bullying you. And when you use your devices to do that, that's cyberbullying. So if instead of whispering something mean every time I see you, I'm texting you every night saying really mean things about you, that's cyberbullying.
Thank you. Is cyberbullying against the law?
So cyberbullying itself is not a crime. It's not a nice thing to do. It's wrong to do that. There are things that you can do as part of bullying that are crimes. So for instance, if the way I'm bullying you is every single day I'm giving you a push when I see you walking in the cafeteria, that pushing is a crime. If I'm just saying something, I don't like the way you did your hair today, or I don't like your shoes, that can be bullying. Unfortunately, saying mean things isn't a crime. But if I start saying to you, you are just so mean that I'm going to break something you have, I start threatening you, that can become a crime. There is legislation or law in Massachusetts that says that when bullying is going on and it affects people at school, it affects the climate at school. So even if I bully you, suppose I bully you on your phone all weekend long, and it makes you so scared and so upset that you don't want to go to school on Monday, or you go to school and you won't go into the cafeteria and eat your lunch because you don't want to see me because I've been bullying you. That's something that the law requires that the school deal with, because it's changing the way people can learn. You can't really be comfortable and learn if you're afraid or if somebody's hurting you.
If someone is caught cyberbullying, what are the consequences?
So depending on what it is that they said, they could be charged with a crime. So for instance, if somebody is saying, I just don't like you so much, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to burn down your parents' house. They were saying something like that. That's a threat. So they could be prosecuted for that. But what we're really looking at is everybody knows there's lots of reasons that people sometimes do something. And sometimes when people say mean things, or most of the time really, it's because they don't feel very good about themselves. And maybe somebody else has been mean to them and they are afraid to be mean to that person, so they take it out on being mean to somebody who's smaller or younger than they are or is different than them. So what we try to do when we have children that are engaging in cyberbullying that's come to our attention because they're saying things that are criminal is to try to bring, we have a class that we run for them and for their parents. So they come here to this building. We have separate classes for boys and for girls. We have a class for the parents where we really try to explain to them a few things about what the consequences could be, because the consequences could be very serious. We really sort of give people a chance by explaining to them, look, we understand that you probably didn't realize this was a crime. This could be a really serious crime. And it could affect you for the rest of your life if you ended up getting charged with that crime. So we want you to understand that. We want you to think about what it means to somebody when they're getting text messages or something that say mean things about them. And we want you not to do that again. And we want you to write us an essay telling us that you understand all of that. So if people do all of that, then we don't go forward with charging them.
If someone is mean or threatening online, how should I respond?
So what happens sometimes are two things. Somebody says something mean to you, and probably everybody thinks, if you really were being honest, you say something mean right back, right? And especially when it's kind of anonymous because you're online, so I can't really see you. I see this thing come, it says something mean about me, and I think, who are you? I'm going to say something mean back to you. That's a really bad way to respond because you should always be the person you are and not be affected by the people that you encounter. So if you're a good person, you should be a good person all the time, even if you run into a mean person. The other thing that tends to happen sometimes is you get something mean and you think, I can't believe that person said that to me. I'm going to tell all these other people. I'm going to show everybody else what they said to me. So they start sending that around. Mm-hmm. And that just makes the problem worse because now instead of one person having seen this mean thing, we have 20 people in the grade who've already seen it. So the most important thing is to talk to a grown-up. Somebody that you trust. If you're at school, you can talk to your teacher, you can talk to the guidance counselor, the principal, somebody that you trust. If you're at home, you show your parents or show your parents when you get home from school and kind of unwrap what happened and figure out what's the best thing to do. And sometimes if people are afraid that what's been said is going to disappear, if it's a Snapchat or something, it might be a good idea once you talk to somebody to take a picture, a screenshot of that.
If someone sends me an inappropriate picture, video, or message, how should I respond?
The same thing. So again, that also tends to be something where people just, because they're confused or maybe they're a little bit embarrassed or they don't know what to do, they start showing it to everybody else. And so the picture, which was inappropriate in the first place, now goes to 1,000 different places. And it's kind of like if you had a whole pile of feathers and you blew the feathers, you could really never pick those all up again. And that's what happens when you start sending pictures around. You can't ever kind of get that back, and it makes the problem worse. But you should be talking to a grown-up about it, and you should not be responding to it. And if you need to and you're afraid it's going to go away, take that screenshot of it.
As district attorney, how often do your cases involve cyberbullying or internet-related crimes?
Unfortunately, a lot. Partly because everybody, even grown-ups and kids alike, everybody spends way more time on their devices now. It's sometimes at the end of the week you get the summary of how much time you've spent, and it's a lot of time. So because we communicate so much more over devices, that just becomes the way that people say happy things, the way people say sad things, mad things. So we see that a lot, and sometimes people think it's a joke. So, the same way when you go to the airport, they have really strict rules about the kind of things that you can do to get through security, and you can't say certain things. There are certain things that you just cannot say, whether you say them in person or you say them in a device about threatening people or talking about guns or doing bad things at school. And people forget that. They think that's kind of a joke, and no one is going to take that as a joke. People are going to respond very seriously to that.
Can you give some examples where kids or teenagers were involved and share the outcomes of those cases?
So we have had, unfortunately, lots and lots of cases where people take a picture, and maybe they've taken the picture, either it was their own idea or somebody they think is really their friend asked them to take a picture, an inappropriate picture, and send them the picture. So often what will happen is you take the picture, maybe somebody's asked you to send them to it, which was never a good idea. If somebody's asking you to send them an inappropriate picture, you need to be telling a grown-up that, especially if it's somebody that you don't know. And by know, you have actually physically seen them. So a lot of times kids get busy talking to people and they think they know who that person is. And that person says, you know, I'm 11 years old and I live in Wilmington. Well, you don't know who that is. If you don't know who the person is, if they're not related to you, they don't go to school with you, they don't live in your neighborhood, that could be a 40-year-old person. So anybody who's asking you to send them pictures, particularly if you don't know them, you should be telling a grown-up about that. And lots of times we see kids sending pictures and they think they're sending them to another kid. They think it's somebody they've gotten friendly with. Maybe they've been playing video games with them and they've been talking to the person through the controllers, and they think they know who it is, and it isn't that person at all. And then what's the most concerning in those situations is sometimes then the person will say to them, will you meet me somewhere? You never want to be agreeing to meet somebody that you don't know. Even if you think it's like at a safe place, I'm going to meet the person at the mall or somewhere, you never want to be doing that. So we've had, unfortunately, a lot of those cases. We've also had a lot of cases where people have sent inappropriate pictures around the school, and nobody would want to go to school if you thought everybody in class and everybody in the cafeteria had seen an inappropriate picture of you. So we see kids get very upset. They decide they just can't face going to school. So maybe they're faking that they don't feel well, or they're just skipping school. And that harms their education, obviously, but it also is just very sad for them because they don't get to enjoy being with their friends and doing all the things that kids their age should do. So those are a couple of the kinds of things we see too often.
Social media trends are always changing. Do you have any recommendations for parents to ensure that their kids and teenagers are staying safe online?
Yes. So the most important thing for parents is to be having conversations with your kids. Assume they know a whole lot more than you do about it, because they do. And assume that even if you have learned about something, probably by the time, if you're a mom or a dad, by the time you've learned about it, the kids are almost finished using that. Like, we spent a whole lot of time talking to parents about how they should learn about Facebook. There aren't a whole lot of kids that are using Facebook anymore. So I think you have to be really honest about that and, you know, have conversations with your kids about how does this work? What do we do? Show me what you're doing. Your passwords should always be shared with your parents. Parents should be looking at their kids' phones and seeing where they've been, what they've been putting out there, because if it's all good stuff, it shouldn't be a problem to have your parents be seeing it. And parents should never, ever think that putting some kind of controls on devices actually works, because unfortunately, most of those controls are pretty easy to get around. So it requires the same as any other part of parenting that you want to turn out well. It requires that you put in a lot of time and that you have conversations with your kids, and that your kids understand that if something scares them or upsets them online, that they can talk to their parents about it. And the parents won't just react. Sometimes parents just get frightened themselves and they react by getting angry, and that doesn't encourage people to talk about it.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you for coming.
We hope you found this information to be helpful. Now get off your devices and go and play.
Ride your bike. Hang out with your friends.
Or spend some time with your family.
But not your brothers. They're up to no good.
Thanks
for watching. Bye!
Guys, the camera's still rolling.
What? Thanks, Just Listen.